in front of a huge crowd, and I thought, why is this guy not happy? And then I started to think about, I wonder who he's upset at. Well, question was answered in about 2 seconds. He grabbed a hold of my face mask, and he looked at me and he said, "This is not the bleep bleep NFL. You cover that ball up with both hands, stick it in your belly, and just fall on the ground." That was his counsel to me at that time. So look, a little less than subtle life message there, right, is like, don't let your teammates down by doing stupid things, right? But he had his own way of saying things, and that was quite effective. Well, needless to say, the next snap, we did from center, didn't look quite as eloquent as the first one, but we did end up winning the game. The other thing I remember about Coach Schnitzler is that, he's a great motivator and just a coaching genius. And but an aspect about Coach I think people didn't know enough about was he had a wonderful sense of humor, great sense of humor. I know it's hard to believe after that last story, but Coach really did have a great sense of humor. And he always knew when the appropriate times were to have fun with your players. In the business world, we call that situational leadership. You understand the situation and you apply the right leadership, and Coach knew exactly when to have fun with his players. And I remember back at the old school, the coach's office there was really, really small, really small. It was probably 10 by 10, maybe even smaller than that. Coach could tell us exactly what it is. But the point is, it was really, really small. And Coach and I were in the office there. We were in a one-on-one meeting, just talking there. And I think it was Mark Hostreiter, great running back for us in the 80s. Mark knocked on the door and interrupted us, popped his head around the door, and he looked around and he said, "Hey, Coach, I'm looking for Coach Kropp. Is he in here?" Coach smirked at him, rolled his eyes, he looked at me, shrugged his shoulders, and he said, "Geez, Mark, I don't know, is Coach Kropp in here or not?" Coach said, "Hang on." He said, "Let me check." He looks at his shirt pocket and he said, "Is Coach you in there?" He's like, "No, Coach Kropp isn't there." And then he opens up his top desk drawer and he's like, "Is Coach Kropp hanging out in the desk drawer?" Then he asked me and he said, "Hey, Brett, look in Coach Greer's locker. Maybe Coach Kropp is hanging out in the locker." Right? So the point is, he and I had a lot of fun at Mark Hostreiter's expense. And I tell you, it just showed a tremendous sense of humor that he had. But in all seriousness, when I reflect about the leadership skills that I use every day in my business as an executive, it's very easy for me to draw direct connections and comparisons to learning these skills from great coaches and teachers here at BCHS. Well, time prevents me from sharing more tonight about some of these things, but I would like to share with you, I think, 5 guiding leadership principles that I use every day that I know I can directly attribute back to my experiences here at the school. First one is I think this applies to being an athlete or a business person. Number one, you got to be prepared. Be prepared. And be prepared means you got to be organized, you got to be disciplined, and you got to be prepared. And being prepared means you got to study your competition, you got to understand them, you got to analyze them, you got to understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and you got to develop a plan to win. You got to make sure that everybody on your team understands that plan and clearly understands what's expected of them. Bottom line, the job of the coach, the leader, is being prepared and make certain that your teams are prepared. And I will say this, in retrospect here, I witnessed firsthand Coach Schnitzler and that entire staff. They modeled this behavior to perfection. This coaching staff would work extremely hard. They're always there early watching film, always there late at night. They made absolutely certain our teams were prepared. And I can assure you this, we were prepared. In many cases, we were so well prepared as a team, we could recognize plays the other team ran the minute they snapped the ball. And I could give you 10 examples of that. And let me tell you this, there's nothing more that inspires confidence with your team than making certain that they know that they are the best prepared team on the field. And this coaching staff did that. In the 40-plus games that I played here as a football player at Battle Creek, I can't recall one time that our team wasn't prepared for a game. Now, maybe not prepared for the victory formation, right? But we were always prepared for the game. And as players, we always were put in a position to win. And that's all you can ask, I think, of your coaching staff. The other thing I think great coaches do is they get into a routine. They get into a routine, they get the business into a cadence or the team in a cadence, and they don't deviate from that, especially if it's successful. And let me tell you about Coach Schnitzler's view on that. And, I guess this is our senior year. we were getting ready to play in the state championship game on Friday night, I believe it was, against North Platte St. Pat's. Well, on Thursday night, the night before the game, several of us, and I see a lot of them in the back of the room, we decided as a team, coming from the seniors, that we were going to paint our football shoes black. Most of our shoes were black or white at the time, and we thought it'd be really cool to paint the shoes black. And we got really elaborate too. We were painting the swooshes with a nice gold swoosh, and Jeremy had really nice accents on his shoes. We were really proud of the shoes that we had, and they were all lined up in the locker room on Friday morning. Well, Coach Schnitzler walks in on Friday morning, and he grabs me and Jeremy and a couple of others, and he says, "What is this?" And we said, "Well, we decided, since for the big game, that we would paint our shoes black." And he's like, "We don't do that. We don't change anything. And why would we change anything the night before the biggest game? You run the formula we've developed all year long, and we're not going to change it." So he called Coach Crop up, and he said, "Coach, go out to the shop and get the industrial paint sprayer. We're painting these shoes white." So on the south side of the school over here, if you looked out there about 11 o'clock on Friday afternoon, there was 120 shoes lined up. They were all drying from white paint. And we had one guy on the team, Bob Hunter, who actually had black shoes, and he tried to lobby Coach and said, "Hey, Coach, I already have black shoes. Can I keep my black shoes?" And he said, "Nope, you're painting yours white too." So we, believe it or not, actually won the state championship. It was a really close game. Probably had something to do with those shoes that more than likely weighed about 15 pounds. So Coach was a stickler for routine. But another great life lesson, right? Don't change the formula if it's working for you. But the other thing I think you learn, number 2 principle that I learned, is you got to work harder than your competition. You got to be committed, and you got to be committed to win. And that means you got to work harder than your competition. Look, it's one thing to be prepared, but your team still have to have the capability to win, which means it takes huge commitment from everybody on that team and tremendous effort. And the expectation of our coaching staff was, we're going to put forth the effort. And you guys, as a team, are going to put forth that effort. And the effort doesn't apply just to physical stuff, it's also very mental in terms of the preparation as well. And I think all of us, certainly teammates in the room here, can remember countless hours that we were running sprints in the summer months, all trying to prepare ourselves and condition ourselves for the season in the fall. Many hours that we spent in 95-degree weight rooms, all trying to develop ourselves to ensure that we were the strongest team on the field. And I think the coaching staff knew one thing. Certainly it was good for us physically to get developed, but they also knew how much camaraderie we were building as a team in terms of working together. And that camaraderie pays huge dividends when it's 4th and 1 in a state championship game and the game is on the line. And I can tell you that work ethic really drives that. And look, as a business leader, that same principle applies to business. It's my responsibility to ensure my organization is prepared, understands the plan, and has the resources and are inspired to be successful. It's then up to the individuals to put forth the effort required to beat the competition and be successful themselves. So my advice to young people entering the workforce today is to put in the effort. Be the first one there, be the last one to leave. Make it clear to your organization that you're willing to put forth the effort. Ask your boss to take on another assignment. Volunteer to take on more work. Always do more than the minimum, I think is absolutely imperative to get ahead in this world. Third principle that I believe strongly in that I learned here is no one on any team or in any organization is irreplaceable, and everyone must be coachable. I don't care who you are, whether you're a great athlete or a great business person, I believe in continuous improvement, and you can always get better. I don't care how good you are, you can always get better. And the other thing I believe in is you have to be coachable. Even late in your career and deep into your life, you've got to be willing to take some constructive feedback and take a little coaching. Because no one wants to coach or manage people who think they know it all and become not coachable. Well, you might be surprised, but I learned this the hard way. Again, at Battle Creek High School. And I was a sophomore this time, and it was during track practice. And at the time, we didn't have a wonderful facility like we have here. Us, shot putters and discus throwers, we threw over at St. John's behind the school, and the sprinters and the jumpers went out to the park. That's where they practiced. Well, Coach Pete Kropp was responsible for coaching us throwers, and at that time, the throwers would practice over there. And like I said, the runners would be out at the park there. Well, we headed over to the school for practice. And we got out there, And given the fact that I've been throwing the discus for 7 or 8 years before I got to school, I probably thought like I knew a little bit more than Coach Kropp. And Coach had asked us to do a new drill that day. And Jeremy Pokup and his brother Corey were also with me, and we're throwers. And Coach asked us to do this drill, and I thought it was crazy. I thought, why are we doing this? This is stupid. I was thinking at the time, thank God, right? But I'm sure our body actions from Jeremy and I were rolling eyes and stuff. We thought Coach lost his mind. He doesn't know what the heck he's doing. But after that lasted for a little while, I actually had the courage, and I said something to Coach. And I said, hey, look, why are we doing this? This makes no sense. Why shouldn't we should be doing what we've always done. Coach, again, man of few words, right? He was smoking his pipe at the time. He had those black glasses on. And he looked over his glasses, looked at me, and he pointed to the high school, and he said, get the hell out of here. And as I walked over to the school, I was walking from the school, I thought, did he just kick me out of the practice, or am I kicked out of the team? I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, the story gets worse, because this happened like 5 minutes into practice. So as I'm walking back to the school, guess who's leaving the school? Coach Nitzler. He's just leaving, going out to the park with a sprinter. So we cross paths, and Coach looks at me and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, well, Coach Kropp told me to come back to the school. And he looked at me very inquisitively, and he's like, that doesn't make any sense, but we'll talk about it later. Sure enough, after we hit the showers later that night, I had a little discussion with Coach Schnitzler and Coach Kropp, by the way. And they gave me a little advice. I wouldn't call it exactly friendly advice. Let's just call it advice. And tonight I'll give you the PG version, by the way. But it basically boiled down to 2 messages. He said, Brett, in your life you have to be coachable. No one wants to coach kids or manage people that don't want to be coached or unwilling to be managed. You got to learn that early in life. You just got to do it. And he said, the other thing I want you to know is in life you got to listen. And I think if you're willing to listen, you can find something from just about anybody that you can learn from. Even Coach Kropp when it comes to throwing the discus. Well, certainly that applies to business, right? As a leader in any organization, last type of employee I want in our company is somebody that's unwilling to take coaching or direction. Obviously what we want on our teams are people that really excel and very helpful in solving problems and being willing to listen to others in doing that. Number 4, I think it's very important to commit yourself to lifelong learning. We all know that compulsory education ends after high school. I think, however, in life it's imperative to always keep learning. So I think the minute you stop learning, you start regressing, and I think it's important to keep learning. And I think that applies to any profession that you choose. Regardless of where you go in life, it's important to keep learning. Unfortunately for me, one regret that I have is I didn't appreciate or embrace the art of learning until later in life. In fact, I recall it, I think it was after I graduated from UNL, that I truly embraced lifelong learning and got passionate about educating myself and opening myself towards learning new things and creating diversity in terms of what your interests are. And I think certainly this applies to the professional world as well. As an employee, every employee in every organization has to create value. You just do. You got to create value. And in order to create value in organizations, you got to be willing to learn new things, do new things. And God knows this world is changing rapidly. You have got to change and develop the skills required to contribute to the organization that you're a part of. And I think it's absolutely important just to maintain this commitment to learning. And last but certainly not least, I believe growing up in this wonderful community of Battle Creek taught me the importance of being grateful. Being grateful. My father would always say, remember your roots. And I think, regardless of where we are in life, there's always going to be people that have more than you do. There always have people that are going to be less fortunate than you. And I think it's important to wake up every day and be thankful and grateful for where you are in life. Focus on the things you have versus the things you don't have. I know it's hard to do sometimes. I think most of us do. The older you get, the more grateful we become. Certainly, that applies to me. For your parents, your family, the foundation you receive growing up in this great community are certainly things that I'm grateful for. And also going to a great school like Battle Creek and playing for wonderful coaches that inspired me to go on and do things that I never ever dreamed I was capable of doing. So in closing, I want to offer some closing insights to you, the four cornerstones of this wonderful community that helped establish those guiding principles, and not only me, but many others that have enjoyed successes in their own professional lives. To the parents in the room, you play such an important role, I think, in establishing the values and the work ethic in your children that form their foundation. Yes, the teachers and the coaches are great and do a wonderful job in helping develop your kids, but they can't supplant the role the parent does. And to my parents and family, thank you for what you helped me and my sisters do as part of our family. To the community, the pride that each of you have in your community, schools, and churches, it plays such an important role in inspiring our young kids that want to excel and do great things in their lives. And you inspire them to do that. To the teachers and the administrators, I think just as it was for me back in the late 80s, my guess is there's probably several kids today that may not appreciate yet how well your vision and principles will serve them so well in later stages of their life. But I will say this, give them time. I'm sure they will recognize that, appreciate that, and hopefully 20 years from now they'll be up here talking to you about the contributions that they've made in their lives thanks to you. The 5 C's of success and the 8 principles of pride that you are leading this organization to are right on the mark and clearly on target. And if the kids live into these, I'm quite confident they are going to have life skills that's going to make certain that they are successful deeper into their lives. And finally, to the coaches, probably goes without saying, the impact that you have on young adults' lives in this world is truly exceptional. The lifelong skills that you instill in young student athletes are far-reaching. You teach kids about the importance of being organized, being prepared, being disciplined. You develop a strategy to help them understand what it takes to win, which is a great lifelong skill that will serve them well deep into their careers. You teach young people how to be coachable through the various means that you have, some a bit more direct than others. You set lofty goals for kids and expect them to put forth the effort required to be successful. You help kids learn how to win with class and lose with dignity. And lastly, I think in this small Midwestern community of Battle Creek, I want you to know firsthand how influential each and every one of you are in inspiring confidence in kids like me. It was you that enabled guys like me to go out in this world and accomplish much greater things in this life that they ever dreamed they were capable of doing. And for that, I thank you very much.
So much, Brett. Thanks for those great words. Words of wisdom. Is this still on? Okay. And thanks for the memories. They were great. Very inspirational. I think we can all take something from your message. I definitely will. Thanks a million. At this time, I think it's time to honor our future leaders. We have a set of scholarships